What's up, everyone? Saturday morning to everybody here in the States, I guess, but,
Yep.
uh, you know, otherwise, afternoon or good Sunday in some cases, I guess, but,
Yes.
uh,
Good day to all. So
yeah, there you go. so,
that's right.
so like we do that. I do that a lot, but I don't mean to. Just have it.
Yeah, we're not. Yeah, we're definitely not trying to leave anybody out. We know we got people watching all over the world. So
So, all right. So we were planning on having a guest today, but there's been
another hiccup.
another hiccup there that we weren't aware of until now, which kind of I don't know. It kind of felt like it could have been talked about the first time, but it is what
Yeah,
it is. I guess it's
a
you know with the
definitely a last minute about face. So
yeah.
turn of events here kind of going on.
But the thing is like when you're talking, when we do what we do, we're talking with bands, you know, outside of the states and other countries, and a lot of times we run into language barriers, and
Hmm.
they don't feel comfortable doing a live show with the language barriers. So we're trying to work out something else. Maybe we'll do a show where maybe we pre-record it or whatever, and then
Yeah,
we'll kind
and then just
of
we just play it for you guys on Saturday. Something
yeah
like.
or something. Yeah, we'll do something to that extent or something. So.
I mean, we don't want anybody to be uncomfortable. So
Well, no, I mean that's kind of defeats the whole purpose of what we do. So we don't,
right.
you know, we're we we pride ourselves in being laid back and not pressuring people into questions and stuff. So I mean, it's kind of like we're going to talk about something in a minute where Death Dealer was on the show and we didn't want to pry or push the issue of
Yeah. But it
Rusty
was
Balls with
but it was
ALS, but it was
yeah.
like he said, it's got to be talked about. So I mean,
Yeah.
unfortunately, so
Yeah.
and then of course we found out, yeah, was it yesterday?
Yep.
Yeah, yesterday that Ross the Boss had passed away. If you didn't know, that was the picture in the beginning of the show there of Ross the Boss. So I thought that was a pretty good one, him pointing out to everybody. So,
Oh yeah.
so pretty sure from Stu's perspective, that was kind of who Ross the Boss was. It was
Mhm.
all about everybody else. He
Yep.
wasn't.
Oh
So I mean, talented guy too, man. God, been around forever, and definitely made put his imprint on the metal scene for sure. So
hmm yeah. I mean, you know, it's like when we talked about when Ozzy passed away, and when Ace Frehley passed away, and these dudes are, they're iconic and they're legendary, and I mean, they're just, you know, they 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 were the ones who kind of, just molded heavy metal into what it became. And yeah, obviously everything changes and it goes through a metamorphosis and stuff like that. And an evolution, whatever you want to call it. You know, it wasn't gonna, because we've talked about why hair metal died. We've talked about it
right.
before. You can argue it was grunge. You can argue it was flooding the market. So all variables, I'm sure. But I mean, these guys, Ross and Ozzy and Ace. I mean, they were spearheading a movement, is what they were doing. And you get these guys who pioneer these sounds, and they become synonymous with it. They become they become the sound, and they become the figureheads for this sound and this movement that you and I grew up with for sure. you know and then it just they become household names to guys like us, with this genre of music. Probably not household names all over the world. Ozzy for sure was a
Right.
household name all
Yeah.
over the world, but not everybody around the world who knows who Ross the Boss is, but
Well,
we but
Ozzy also had a little bit of TV time that helped him too.
yeah. So I mean, he did what other metal acts really didn't do, aside from maybe Metallica had mainstream crossover, but I mean
Oh,
it's so few and far between that happens. But when we're just brass taxing it and narrowing it down to just metalheads in general. Whether this isn't this something like this when this happens. This isn't a subgenre thing. Well, it's like, oh, I'm a deathcore, blah. This
Right.
is a metal thing. That's what when something like this happens. And now Ross the Boss. This is a metal thing. This basically at this point transcends all the subgenres because we don't get subgenres without these guys doing what they do for as long as they did.
Yeah.
So that's what this turns into. It doesn't even really have anything to do with I'm a fan of X, Y, and Z subgenres, and we've talked about what you and I gravitate towards more. Our thrash foundation as far as our fandom, how it began, and then
Right.
everything branches off from there. So you and I
Of
have,
course, yeah.
yeah, you and I have different things that we listen to more than the
Well,
other. So I mean,
you
but
know,
that's what's so awesome about it. But these guys are the reason why we had something to start with to even evolve to.
yeah, you think about that, like so when we talk about we branch out and stuff a lot. I think we've probably done that as we gotten older, because
Hmm.
if you think about it, metalcore, none of that shit was around in the '80s. So I mean,
Right.
you had some what am I trying to say? Some, I don't know, not symphonic, I guess, but more of that type of music with bands like Halloween and stuff in the '80s. But you
Sure.
didn't have, I guess Queensryche's kind of in that power metal type deal too, which
Yeah.
I never really knew that until like of course years later, and people when I looked up stuff for
Yeah.
when we started doing this show, and I was looking at stuff, and I was like, Queensryche had a new album out, and whenever we were looking at it, it was just like, oh yeah, the power metal. I'm like, wait, what? They're power metal? Yeah,
Queen. When you're
yeah,
talking about Queen, power metal, progressive metal. So I mean,
yeah.
I mean, they've been kind of, Queensrÿche kind of gets lumped into
Like Dream
those
Theater type
subgenres a
stuff.
little. Yeah, Dream Theater, progressive metal, stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, which it's kind of like I guess you can see it from a sense, but then sometimes I'm just like, I don't know, man. And I guess that makes sense because Queensryche did kind of like when I first heard Queensryche, I was like, well, this is different. This isn't something
Well, it's
you were hearing at that time. You know what I mean? It's like
right.
like you said, we were mostly thrash anyway, so we were going down the list listening to the Metallicas and Megadeths and Anthrax. I'm talking about this is in the '80s now when
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
MTV was first out and Headbangers Ball and all that good stuff. Where
Hmm.
you see all these bands, and then all of a sudden you see a Queensryche. I think probably Operation Mindcrime was the first time I got introduced to them. I don't know if you remember anything about when the first time you heard them, but I know that's probably the first time I got
Uh,
introduced to them. Of course,
I,
they had the Warning and stuff out before that, but
right.
I didn't know anything about that stuff until Operation Mindcrime came out. They were doing Eyes of a Stranger video and stuff. And, oh, this is
Yeah,
cool. This is
yeah.
pretty cool. And,
Well, I
you know,
think that was. I mean, I think that was basically everybody's. Well, not. I'm speaking in general terms, of course, but when Operation Mindcrime, Eyes of a Stranger and stuff like that. When those videos were coming out, I think that was kind of Queensryche's really mass
comeback. Yeah.
introduction. Yeah, you
Right.
know, and then obviously they hit it really big with Empire,
Well, yeah.
but I mean the funny thing is what we're doing now is it's like a very small scale revisionist history, because like you talked about when we were watching Headbangers Ball and we were coming up and that stuff was on there. It's like, yeah, we knew at the time it was different, but it wasn't until, I mean, but we're jumping ahead into the 2020s now, and here we are talking about you know Queensryche being like a progressive metal band, or because
Mhm.
see that we didn't do that shit back then. All it was
Right.
was like all it was granted there was still hair metal at the time. Everyone,
Right.
I mean, there was hair metal in there, so I mean it wasn't as cut and dry. Well, not cut and dry, as cut up as it is now.
Mhm.
Everyone knew that Metallica and Anthrax, Megadeth and Slayer,
Mhm.
those were the thrash metal, and then you had Maiden and Priest, those were the
Right.
traditional heavy metal, Ozzy and Black Sabbath and stuff like that, well, more Ozzy's solo stuff because by then he was out of Black Sabbath, but I mean, so I mean, I guess you could say we probably had maybe three or four subgenres at the time, but that was pretty
Yeah.
much it.
Yeah.
You
And then
know, so yeah,
of course, during our time, I think probably Van Halen was holding just the hard rock flag at that point.
yeah, Van Halen and AC/DC, and
Right. Yeah.
depending on what side of the fence you were on at the time, Def Leppard. You know,
Yeah.
so I mean, man,
Well,
of course,
they started out pretty heavy. Yeah.
they did start out pretty heavy, but to me, they kind of always teetered on the. They were
They
like,
have. Yeah.
so, but that's the thing is, I mean, I like Van Halen, I like AC/DC, and I like early Def Leppard. So I mean, the calling them hard rock isn't trying to put them down. It's just,
Oh no.
you know. So I mean, I still like listening to those bands, you know,
But
now. So it's
I
definitely
was just trying to
not
plant.
some form of insult.
Yeah, I was just trying to plant the seed in everybody's brain. Like this has been, the genre thing has been a thing, for a long time.
Hmm.
We just did
Oh yeah,
not. We just, we were young and we were just enjoying the music.
it yeah, it didn't matter.
It didn't matter, and even, but I try to say, I tell people all the time, I said, well, take the sleep token thing for instance. I've been on there and I said, look, sleep token, great, great
I
band.
saw what you
They're very talented, man. I'm not going to deny that, but the publications keep starting, you know, arguments between fans because they know it gets them clicks. And then
Hmm.
people are just still clicking and arguing about it too. And it's just
Yeah,
like, dude, if y'all quit arguing about this, they'll stop bringing it up. Like, just let it go. Like, if
yeah,
they want to call them metal, they can call them whatever they want. That doesn't mean it's true.
that's
It's like,
true.
and to go back and think about publications. I mean, back in '80s when we had Circus Magazine, Hit Parader, Metal Edge, all those
Hmm.
magazines, you didn't have bands like that. You wouldn't have had bands like that in them. I mean,
No,
just be honest with you, you wouldn't. I mean, they can look however they want to, but a lot of times they didn't cover stuff like that.
that's true.
I
Yeah,
say
yeah.
that, but I don't know that for sure because if Sleep Token was back in the '80s, they would have probably been some kind of electronic type thing or something. Probably, I mean, seriously, that's probably
Yeah,
what they
no,
would have.
probably. You're probably correct.
That's probably what they would have labeled them. Because they didn't
Yeah,
have, you know, would it have been like some? They'd been, oh, this is some futuristic shit here. It's like,
right.
or something of that nature. But yeah, I don't think even if you put some of the bands that we like into the '80s and '90s, they probably would have been as successful just because of the time it was where the hairband thing. It's kind of like you were pretty boy hairband, and then you probably
Hmm.
got signed whether you had a whole lot of talent or not. But
Yeah, it was.
and that's probably why we don't talk about a lot of those bands anymore because
That's true.
there's only a handful of them that made it through the other side. So
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Well, again, I mean, not to be too repetitious, but I mean, if Pantera didn't evolve, who knows what would have happened to them?
yeah, yeah, and I still say, man, the thing that probably I don't know. There's a lot of factors, like you said, that probably killed that era of music. But I think bands that were unique and had a little something that most of the other bands didn't are the ones that kind of made it on through. So like, take Skid Row for instance. I mean,
Hmm.
me and you both talked about this. Like Skid Row was not a hair metal band by no means. Not to
No,
me, they weren't.
I
I
don't
mean,
think
yeah,
they were.
they had their little, I remember yous and stuff like that, just to try to like get in where they fit in, I guess. But most of the time, like you had tracks like Slave to the Grind and Monkey Business that were you like Jesus Christ, man, like this is
Hmm.
harder than half the shit that's on here right now.
Yeah.
So they definitely had a different mindset and style than most of the other
Well,
so-called hair metal bands. But
what I think when we talk about the hair metal thing, what gets me is yeah, there were too many bands. There were absolutely too many bands.
right,
Because the messed up thing is I think it got to a point where it was more the look than what the
it
sound
was,
was.
yeah.
That was the problem. That was the
Hmm.
problem because everything started all the bands started looking the same. They didn't start sounding the same, but
Right.
like you just said, the ones that actually did have a sound and could make good music, they're the ones who made it.
Hmm.
So I mean, it's just it was just too. When you're talking about music is something that you listen to by and large. Of course, we've
Right.
talked about the visual part of it because we were talking about it. We were talking about. album art with the last couple of guests that we had. So and album art and the visual aspect of music is important. But I mean, when the reason why you're signing a band is how they look, then you're not really signing them for the right reasons.
Exactly.
So and then
Well, I
when
mean,
and then
and you're,
when that's all you're signing, then yeah, you're flooding the market, and it's just the
yeah.
bottom is going to fall out.
And there's probably a lot of agents that got fired shortly after that too.
Probably.
It's like why you just bring me the same shit guy,
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Yeah,
like
probably.
even when we used to watch like I was going to say when we watch videos, it's just like if they didn't have the name at the bottom at some point, like I had come in like sometimes from out with the guys or whatever, and then come in
Yeah.
and get in the middle of a video on Headbangers Ball and be like, oh wow, is that Danger or is that Hurricane? I can't tell. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like by just looking at it until the
Yeah.
damn thing popped up at the end and told you who it was. I was like, oh, cool. That's
Yeah.
it.
Unless you absolutely knew the song cold, then yeah,
Yeah,
you're right, because it was a lot. It really
yeah.
was.
And like I said, you did have a lot of bands that kind of favored each other and stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
to me, I think probably one of the bigger bands from that era was Cinderella. You know,
Yeah.
and and I think it was more of I want to say kind of. I think a lot of those bands like that was more because of their unique voice. Like
Oh
Steelheart.
yeah.
People still know who
Yeah.
Steelheart is because dude could hold a note for 3 minutes and 40 seconds of the 5 minute video. But
That's true. That's true.
what's crazy is I seen a
Yeah.
video of him performing that in the last couple of years, and he can still hold it, man. I'm just like, man, that's crazy, dude, that you're
Yeah.
still able to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, like I said, you had the Queensryches, which Jeff Tate had a unique voice, and
Still does, man. And God, he's
yeah,
still. It's amazing what Jeff's was able to do. And yeah, I mean
yeah.
Tom Kiefer,
That's what
he
I'm
had a
saying. Like
he had a voice. Well, because the good thing with Cinderella is they kind of had a sound that was kind of a little bit more unique and a little bit more all their
they leaned
own,
it.
because
They
they
leaned into the blues a little
they
more.
yeah, they did. They absolutely did. They were a heavy metal band, but they had a little they were a little more melodic and a lot bluesier than some others. So they were able to kind of separate themselves a little bit. Tom Keeper's Kiefer's not Keeper. Tom
Yeah,
Kiefer's vocals helped with that too. But I mean, so they kind of had some. Queensryche had something that was kind of unique. Poison, Motley Crue, they had things that were unique to themselves. Because I mean, make fun of Vince Neil all you want in 2026, but back in 1986, 40 years ago,
yeah.
yeah, Motley Crue had a pretty unique sound.
I never thought that Vince was like if he ever like even back then when they say, "Oh, who's the top 10 vocalist?" He would have never came up. I mean, Vince was never like that standout vocalist, I guess. But I mean, he was a good vocalist, but he never was like that standout
Hmm.
vocalist that like would be on like a Mount Rushmore of people or anything.
Oh no, not even back then. No.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Not even
Yeah,
back then.
definitely not even back then.
Like I think that's why a lot of people, kind of, when the terms came up, they were like, "Oh, he's just a wedding singer or something." It's kind of like I mean, yeah, but he's a wedding singer making a lot of fucking money. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, and you
Well,
had
hey,
bands,
hey,
you had bands like Kicks as well, where Steve Whiteman's, his vocals were pretty unique at that time. So,
yeah.
and, a lot. I mean, there was a lot of unique, I think, vocalists from that era that if they put out new stuff now, I think it would hold
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, what to me, what's the biggest shame is the amount of talent that got lost in the shuffle back then.
Oh yeah, oh for sure. Yeah, there was a lot of that's kind of we talked about the Trickster ordeal where they kind of came in at
Hmm.
like '89 or whatever, and then of course Nirvana and all that stuff kind of came in the early '90s, and then their second record didn't do this good because they
Nobody
were
gave a shit anymore. Yeah,
nobody gave a shit anymore. Everybody was moving on to the grunge movement and and everything. So, and I think they were one of the bands that were kind of I think they were kind of a standout from what the typical hair metal band was, because they were. It was funny to me watching those guys because they were all like flannel shirt guys. They weren't the leather and all that good,
Mm-hmm.
all that's half your shirt, half undone and stuff. They weren't playing into all that. They had their own like I call it maybe like a jackal thing where they were more lumberjacky looking than
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
then when and that's another band, Jackal. I mean, Jesse James Dupree's got a unique
Uh-huh.
voice too. So I mean,
Well,
which
and no one else.
they
Well,
still and they still do stuff. So I mean,
and no one else was using a chainsaw as a musical instrument back
well,
then.
that's
So.
true. Yeah, that's true. That is true.
Which is kind of surprising, really, when you think about it, that
Well,
nobody but
yeah,
Jackal
that
was
is
doing
kind
it.
of with all the craziness that went on in the
Right.
'80s. That
Yeah.
nobody else come up with that yet.
It's kind of when you think about it, it was kind of quintessential '80s. When
Yeah,
you think about it, it was just it was outlandish and over the top, but it fucking worked somehow.
yeah, yeah. I mean, like I said, they're still making music, so
Oh yeah, they are.
something went right. So,
Uh-huh.
but 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 yeah, it's just like like I said, with everything going the way it is, like everything kind of evolves. We have to evolve with that. So yes, by you know love of or introduction to metal, we're thrash people. But then
Hmm.
once they got into where they broke off and had different, and that's probably why we kind of gravitate toward the other stuff, because metalcore is a distinct sounding genre, and
Hmm.
progressive and symphonic is a pretty you know a different sounding genre. So I mean, they all have their sticks within their
Oh
genre.
yeah,
So I mean,
yeah.
so yeah, so you kind of gravitate, you know, towards something else that sounds different that kind of catches your ear, and you're like, oh, this is good. And like, I don't rule out, and like when I say this, I don't rule out symphonic, and I don't rule out power metal stuff or any of that stuff, because I do like some of the bands.
Hmm.
I know we've talked about this before, and I was just like, yeah, man, I can dig it, dig some of those bands, and some of them I can't get into, and some of
Well,
them
I mean,
some of them are some of the like some like Nightwish. I just can't, I've tried, I just can't. There's a couple of songs that I like, but I just can't get into.
sure, and that's the thing is there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Hank Hill, what's up, man?
Yeah, yeah.
Always good to see Hank Hill.
Hope you have a good one too, man. Like,
Yeah, man, absolutely. Thanks for stopping by.
as
Um,
always.
yeah,
So
that's
sorry, we were supposed to have a guest for you today, but we kind of had some issues with a language barrier they were worried about. So we're going to
yep.
try to
Kind of had to.
figure that out, and we'll kind of do something later, I guess. But
Yep, kind of had to shift on the fly a little bit, but that's fine. It's all right. But that we've talked about this many times on the show about how good of a thing that it is that there's so much for us to listen to
right,
that is so different, because I mean it would be because let's be honest, it would be weird if everyone liked everything. It wouldn't
mm,
make any sense if everyone
right,
liked everything, because then you know then these bands could just put out an album every year and it'd be like, hey, they'll like it, just put it out.
hmm,
So I mean, it wouldn't matter, 'cause then the quality of the music would suffer if everyone liked everything. We wouldn't have the great music that we do have, you know. So it, it it doesn't make sense for everybody to like everything, and as an artist, I think, of course, I'm speaking for people who make music, because I don't have the ability to make it. I feel a little disingenuous saying this, but I mean, if as an artist, if you're taking it personal when someone says that, hey, a lot of your music isn't my cup of tea, as long as someone's not being an absolute prick about it,
hmm,
then you can at least respect someone's opinions. Like, hey, at least thanks for we appreciate it. Like, thanks, thank you for at least listening to it. We appreciate you listening to it, and if it doesn't resonate with you, it's like,
yeah.
that's fine. Because I
Well,
mean, for every one person that doesn't like it, I mean, there's going to be plenty more that do. So I mean,
oh yeah.
no, nobody bats 1,000. It just doesn't happen.
Well, that's just like on the show. I mean, if that was the case, then we every album would be a four horn album here. It's kind
Hmm.
of, it's kind
Yeah,
of like we've had our what we consider you know stinker albums, but it's kind of
sure.
like but it's
But
is
that's
it?
just us. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like somebody probably has it in their collection. I don't know, but
Yeah.
and that's what makes the great thing about doing what we do is like everybody has a difference of opinion. Some
Yeah.
people,
Because
some people probably don't agree with what we say. Some people might not even like what we say. I mean,
and
that's
that's
okay.
fine. Yeah.
I mean, that's
Yeah, that's totally fine. Because I mean, I've made it known that I don't like Led Zeppelin. I really
right.
don't like Tool, and with a few exceptions, I'm not a Kiss fan. I mean, there are songs that I like by Kiss, but I don't really,
Mhm.
I'm not a Kiss fan. So there are bands out there who are huge that I just don't really care for. But that's just hell. It seems like there's not a day that goes by where people aren't bashing Metallica, and I love Metallica.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
what it is, man.
Mhm.
It is what it is.
Well, I mean, we go back talk about bands, and this is a difference in what we're talking about. Is you take Megadeth, which we know Dave Mustaine's not a acapella type singer or anything like
Mm,
that. So by no means. So it's kind of like
yeah,
it's not always about vocals either. It's
right.
something has to stick out. For these bands to carry on. Which, like I said, Megadeth and Metallica had an early '80s start where the hair metal stuff didn't kind of kick in until around 80 what 6 maybe some
Yeah,
80 probably somewhere around in there
yeah. They thankfully they kind of were able to get jump started
on
in
the
the
front end
early
of
'80s. Yeah, yeah. The front. Yeah, exactly. On the front end of it, so they were able to establish their identity
it.
way
Hmm.
ahead of
Yeah, so
and well
they didn't
and
they didn't have to succumb to wearing makeup and all this other shit like
right.
they made those guys do. So
Yeah, well, and I mean, they weren't, Metallica and Megadeth, they weren't maybe the inventors of thrash metal, but I mean, hell, they were, you could argue
definitely
who was.
pioneers. You know,
You could argue who was, but I mean, they were definitely at the forefront of thrash metal,
I would say yeah.
making it as, a subgenre. I mean, they were the ones who basically popularized it. You could argue who started it, but Metallica, and then of course, Dave had to be kicked out of Metallica for
Mhm.
Megadeth to form. But I mean, you know,
And then Slayer was around at the
Slayer
time.
was a yeah, they absolutely were.
So
Everything has to start
I don't
somewhere, and you never know where a spark is going to come from, and
right.
say, and it's been hammered to death. But I mean, say what you want about Dave getting kicked out of Metallica, but we got two good bands out of it.
Right.
Blessing
And
in disguise, maybe. I don't know.
you,
Like I
you
say,
know,
it's more revisionist history, but I mean,
right. But you were talking we were talking about that, and then Slayer kind of popped up. But if you think about early Slayer, I don't even consider early Slayer thrashy. I mean, it was more uh, maybe even on the borderline of death metal at that point.
that's why. God, who was it? Who the fuck was it? Because I know you saw the story too. I can't
Oh yeah, yeah,
remember.
where they actually gave Slayer credit for starting death metal, and it
Yeah,
was and it
God,
was a death metal band.
who
Yeah.
was that was saying
It
that?
was one of
Oh,
the bigger death metal bands. Shit. Um,
it was. I can't. But well, you. But
I'll have
but
to look it
anyway.
up.
But anyway, you know the story that I'm talking about. So yeah, I mean, I can kind of agree with that. I do. I kind of agree with that. But
We'll
yeah,
try.
I can't remember who it was that was talking about that. I'm wanting to say it may have been somebody from Cannibal Corpse, but I don't want to be incorrect, but because it was a story that I saw actually just recently talking about that death metal owes a lot of gratitude to early Slayer. Yeah. Damn it, I can't remember who that was, but yeah, I kind of
Oh, it was the ex-Death vocalist.
okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah, Cam Lee said that
There it is. Yep.
death metal blueprint comes from Slayer. So,
Oh, yep.
yeah, so
Yep. There you go.
actually, there's when you look it up, there's several obituary, death, and Cannibal Corpse members have all kind of said that Slayer's early work kind of set the tone for death metal. So
Okay. Well, there you
so
go.
so now you got Slayer, kind of responsible for two genres.
Right. Yeah.
so, uh, but in I think the thing that amazes me now when we listen to stuff is how much stuff is starting to sound more retro. I don't know if you've noticed that a lot
Hmm.
too, but
Yeah.
it's like oh man, this has still got kind of like an '80s feel to it. You know, it's kind
Yeah.
of like, it's crazy that we're in 2026 still saying that, but uh,
The funny thing about it is, unless you're using computers, AI, whatever, the funny thing is human ability and the actual physical instrumentation can only take you so far. Not to
Mhm.
say that not to say that. Oh boy, that kind of sounded bad. I feel like that sounded bad the way I said it, but but that's the thing is I didn't mean it that way. But at one point, there's really only because there's only so many music notes, which
Mhm.
means there's actually a finite amount of combinations in which you can place those notes. So eventually, theoretically, you write all of the combinations of music that you can. I mean, eventually, if you only have, there's A, B, C, D, E, and F and G. That's how many notes there are. There's sharp and there's flat and there's whatever. And obviously we have, different keys and distortion and everything else. But still, you still have a finite number of notes that you can write.
Mhm.
So eventually you write all the music that you can write. So, I
Well,
mean, I'm not saying we've reached that point yet, but, but what I like talking about how stuff is starting to sound retro, and then yeah, I think there's a lot of that coming back. That band Tail Gunner is like a
yeah,
perfect example of that. I mean,
yep,
one of their guitar players is 22,
that's crazy.
and yeah, one of their guitar players is 22, and they sound like a band
So it's been
that
around for 50 years, you know.
yeah, that's been around since the 80s, and I think their stuff is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, that's great.
But of course I kind of would, because it resonates with me, because
Oh yeah.
that's the sound that got me hooked and resonates with me the most. But you know but the fact that there are still people that young, I mean 22 years old, I mean, that person, I mean, they weren't even born. I mean, they were only born.
Yeah.
Anyone who's in a band at this point, that whose birthday has a two in front of it, who's in a band that's making music that sounds like it say they've been around for decades. I mean, to us, that's gonna be awesome, because that's our shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, you'll have people like Brett Carlisle that we interviewed at the Rock Pie, where
oh
he said
yeah,
he grew up and his dad listened to Great White and L.A. Guns and all those bands like we
right,
did. So he kind
yeah,
of grew up in that genre. So like, of course, and if you don't know who Brett Carlisle, he actually is like the vocalist for Great White now. So
yeah,
which is kind of a big thing to be growing up listening to something and then being a part of the band is kind of crazy. But
yeah.
he was on like one of the shows too.
He was. I wanted to
America's Got
say
Talent, maybe.
it. I, shit, I can't remember.
Or, oh, he was
I
on
think
one of
I think
the
it, I
one
think
of
it
the
was.
things.
I actually think it was America's Got Talent. I think it
Okay, so
was.
yeah, he was on one of those
Um,
shows. I don't know how far he made it, but
he, he made it to. I think he made it to like the main stage or whatever, wherever it is that they end up. But he didn't go too far after that. But
which
you
is
know,
crazy to think dude's got some talent
well,
as far as
I've
vocal.
always, of course, I don't watch any of those shows, but I
Yeah, I
have
don't need
always
this.
I've always thought that those shows are bullshit anyway, because I don't
Probably.
I don't think those shows I don't think those shows by and large really give a shit about the talent per se.
Hmm.
I mean, they do, but to me, especially, I think American Idol is actually the absolute worst one. Um, I think to me, those shows by and large are more of how a particular artist looks than more than they sound,
Hmm.
and especially in the instance of American Idol, it's just who people like more. I don't think it really has anything to do with how talented they are, like I
Well,
say
no,
per se,
I
like I
think
say
that's
per se, because
well
if
that's why they had to make rules after the what's his name, the adultery thing,
yeah,
because he was probably the most talented guy on the show. Then he got booted off. I think number 5. He made it to number 5 and then got booted off. So that's when they
Yeah,
started making up this little save thing where they things like, hold on, man, we gotta fix this because it's like,
yeah, because the fucked up thing is now, and no, don't get me wrong, there hasn't been a heavy metal singer on American Idol or anything like that, but there have been a few singers on there that I know for a fact who have like Daughtry who have kind of like leaned a little more to the rock and maybe hard rock side, like maybe lean that way, and
I mean, he sung
and
he sung a Judas Priest song on there, I'm
yeah,
pretty
yeah,
sure.
I
So
know. Yeah, but I mean, in this country, that kind of singer isn't going to win because if it's not some
right.
dumbass bubblegum pop
Or country.
singer or country, when you leave it up, if the results are left up to the general populace like that, if you're going to leave it up to the people of this country to vote who's their American Idol, it's not going to be a rock singer, a hard rock
Mhm.
singer. It's not going to be that. And as far as I know, it hasn't been.
Yeah.
I don't
Nope.
know who the winners have been by and large, you know, because like I say, I don't watch that show, but I don't watch any of them. But I mean, you hear about them by proxy because I mean, in this country, those shows are so damn popular. Unless you're just like not on Facebook or social media at all, you're not. It's damn near impossible to like not hear about it. Because I mean, Adam Lambert, he's in Queen, but I don't even think he was. I don't even think he was the winner. Daughtry wasn't the winner, but he's had a career, and I know that there was another guy. I can't remember his name. There was another guy who was a little bit. He was like I say, he was a little.
Oh, he actually, what was it, James? He's got his own band now, which I actually reviewed one of his albums like a year or so ago. It's still
Yeah,
it's still there. I mean, it's still there. So I mean, it's
yeah. But I mean, when it comes to those talent shows, I don't think the most talented people always prevail because I mean, it's a popularity and you know how does this person look? I mean, do they have a look that we can market? So I don't really think those quote unquote talent shows. I don't think talent is what wins you those talent shows. I really don't.
yeah. Well, I said it's probably got to do with money too. So I mean, you
Sure,
know,
that's what I mean. I mean, can we turn this starlet into something that we can bilk for millions of dollars before we throw her away? So I mean,
let's see here. I was trying to see if I could find it real quick.
yeah, that was. I guess maybe that turned into a little bit of a rant for me, but I
No,
just think, I
that's
just,
fine.
I just think it's stupid because I mean, because Brett, I mean, is he the greatest singer in the world? That's not for me to say, but is he a phenomenal singer? Sure, he's an absolute phenomenal singer. Because I mean, if you can do Jack White or Jack Russell, not Jack White. If you can do, I just said White Snake, but if you can do Jack
Right.
Russell any justice at all, you're absolutely doing something. And Brett can absolutely do Jack Russell justice. He absolutely can.
Mm-hmm. Oh man. Yeah. Of course, the damn things pop up's gonna pop up on me like I
Yeah.
don't hear dude.
But
Jesus Christ.
these talent shows are kind of like the same thing as award shows for me. I think they're just overblown and pointless, and they just don't
Well,
they miss the point for me. I think is what it is. It's just like yeah, but people love them. Let them watch them. It's fine.
oh yeah, that one guy David Cook did a lot of. I forgot about him. He did a lot of rock stuff when he was on there too.
He didn't win though, did he?
No, he did not.
No, he did not.
I think he was runner up though. So,
Oh, well, I mean that's good.
but he wasn't like the. He wasn't like the metal, like he didn't lean toward a lot of the metal stuff like, Daughtry and,
Hmm.
man, I wish I could remember the other guy's name. Of course, Adam Lambert's made a name being with
Yeah, yeah,
Queen.
he's in
Other
Queen,
than,
so yeah, that's
so, I mean, other than that, if it, it almost makes you think if he didn't have that gig, would he still be,
I
you
don't
know,
know. I don't know.
as big as he is, which is
But then again, I mean, at least he was able to use that as a springboard into that gig. You know what I mean? Because it's kind of it because the weird thing is it doesn't mirror it exactly, but it kind of Adam Lambert's whole thing where he got into Queen kind of reminds me of the Rockstar movie.
exactly, yeah.
So it kind of reminds me of it a little bit. He great singer who happened to be heard by the right people at the right time, and then ended up with ended up
Right.
in an amazing band.
James Durbin, that's who I was thinking about. He's the other guy that still does a lot of metal stuff. So
Oh yeah. Okay. Yep. Yep. I remember him.
yeah, he did like Dream On by Aerosmith and
Yeah. But
You Shook Me
again,
All Night Long and
but
stuff.
again, he
So,
didn't win, did he? So,
well, that's what I'm saying. Is like you don't have to because like what I was just kind of like showing what you were talking about is like
right.
they're pushing these people that win and then half of them don't do anything because you have like
Yeah.
Daughtry and Durbin and all those guys that are still doing shit and making money. Where
Hell,
these other
did
guys,
hell did I don't even think Carrie Underwood won, did she? Did she win?
yes, Carrie Underwood did win.
Oh,
Yeah,
did she
so,
win? Okay, all right.
but she was way after Kelly Clarkson. So I mean, like
Yeah,
I think Kelly's probably the first one that I can remember that you still hear in the news and stuff. So
yeah.
a lot of those when I think that was it that Ruben Studdard guy. He was from Alabama. He won one year, and I mean he kind of like was in stuff in the beginning
Well,
and then fell
that
off,
was
and
the
nobody's ever heard from him or
well,
heard
that
about
was
him.
well, I know who Ruben Studdard was,
Oh,
but
okay.
that was the season that everyone that thought that Clay Aiken should have won, right?
Right. I think
Yeah.
so.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But,
I'm
yeah.
surprised.
So,
I'm
I mean,
surprised. I'm even surprised I remember as much of this shit as I do. Because, like I say, I've never
right.
watched a single episode of that
Well,
show.
I mean, it's kind of like once when it comes out, you're kind of intrigued by okay, well, how's this work? I mean, you start watching it, and then after a couple of seasons of it, you're just like, man, whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
I used to like the Mass Singer because it's already a celebrity, and I always like to try to guess who's back, in behind the mask or whatever.
Yeah.
And then like I even got old after a while. It's like, yeah, come on, man. There's only so many damn costumes you can make, and it's like you start repeating stuff, and Jericho was on there at one point, which was kind of funny, but
Oh yeah. Yeah. I remember hearing about that.
yeah. So yeah, so I mean, like you say though, you don't know how much of those shows are actually. I mean, they got to have some kind of shock and entertainment value, or people's not going to watch it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, let's kick this, have this guy kicked off, even though and we'll probably offer him a deal afterward or whatever. So I mean, a lot of the people that are on those shows still get offered deals because of how good they were. Even
Yeah.
and like honestly, sometimes they probably get better deals than the people that won. But I think they try to
Probably.
lean into.
Probably.
I think they try to lean into, especially nowadays when you think about how people try to lean into one way or another to get clicks and likes and everything else. It's like it's almost for the sake of talking about examples. Say you had a transgender on the show, I think the producers and stuff would be more like, hey, we got to lean into that, or we're gonna fucking get canceled. You know what I mean? I think that's what I'm saying as far as the mindset, because
Yeah.
of the way the world works now.
Well,
It's all about
what always
leaning into what's
yeah.
popular. You know,
Yeah, what always gets me about those shows, and not necessarily American Idol, but I have seen it to where, everyone's got the sob story, and it seems like the person with the sob story goes the furthest. It's like, come on, man. It's like, it's not that I don't feel for you, what you had to go through in your life, but that doesn't mean you should automatically win, or, so it's just kind of that, I don't know. That I know that sounds so prickish, and I don't care because it's just like I just don't think
I
I
mean,
just don't think in the guise of a talent show, if you're the most talented, you should win. I mean,
right?
I
No
don't.
matter what, no matter
To
the
me,
case.
I don't give a shit what you went through. I don't really care. It's like, are you the best singer? Are you the best performer? I mean, in the case of America's Got Talent, it isn't always necessarily a singer. So I mean,
Right.
but American Idol and The Voice, I mean, those are shows where hey, can you sing? And then so you can, but
And then I
I
don't know
don't
if you've
know.
seen where they're bringing Star Search back too. So
Oh, good lord, are they really?
Yeah, yeah. I can't remember who's hosting it now, but I seen where they were bringing it back. Who was hosting
I
it?
didn't see that. Is it, is it going to be the hologram of Ed McMahon is going to host?
No, it was actually Anthony Anderson was hosting it. Yeah,
Oh, all right.
yeah.
Okay.
So they had like judges Jelly Roll, Sarah Michelle Gellar, and Chrissy Teigen.
Okay.
So I mean, you know, and like I said, those judges are kind of like in different aspects of entertainment. So, which when you're talking about Star Search, it wasn't always about one thing or another. You know, they had comedians, they had
Oh, yeah, yeah.
musicians and singers and everything on there. So,
Yeah.
it was kind of a mix of everything. I mean, we got to talk about other stuff and even like scratch the surface of this week's topics yet. So, but
Yeah.
do you have the story on Rick on Ross the Boss or?
Well, pick a. I mean, hell, we
Well, I
could
know,
pick.
yeah,
Yeah, we could
yeah,
definitely pick a platform, and it wouldn't matter. But yeah, I mean, I've got. I've got. You know, I for some reason I always pretty much gravitate towards Blabbermouth. So I mean, so we can. So yeah, we can do that.
okay.
But like we said, if you're a metalhead at all and have just been living under a rock at this point, I'm sure you've heard that Ross the Boss Friedman has passed away, a founding member of both Manowar and the Dictators, whose influence in heavy metal and punk is noticeable to this day, as we've alluded to earlier in the show, has died at the age of 72. His passing comes a little over a month after it was announced that he had been diagnosed with ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. The news of Friedman's passing was shared via a statement on the social media of the Metal Hall of Fame. Quote, "It is with deep sadness that we confirm the passing of legendary guitarist, our dear friend, and Metal Hall of Fame inductee Ross the Boss Friedman. Ross was a pioneering force in both punk and heavy metal, best known as a founding member of the Dictators and Manowar. Ross will always be the Metal Hall of Fame's global metal ambassador to the world. His powerful playing, unmistakable tone, and uncompromising spirit helped shape generations of musicians and fans around the world. Earlier this year, Ross publicly shared his diagnosis with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS, facing it with the same courage and honesty that defined his life and career. Ross's impact on music is immeasurable, from the raw energy of early punk to the epic scale of heavy metal. His work left a lasting mark on the genre and on everyone who experienced it. Beyond his achievements on stage and in the studio, Ross was deeply respected by his peers and beloved by fans across continents. His legacy will live on through his music, his influence, and the countless lives he touched. We extend our heartfelt condolences to his family, friends, bandmates, and fans worldwide during this difficult time. Further details will be shared as they become available." End quote. A separate statement on Ross's Facebook page reads as follows, quote, it is with profound sadness that we announce the passing of the Bronx's own Ross the Boss Friedman, who died last night battling ALS. A legendary guitarist and beloved father, his music and spirit impacted fans around the world as much as you impacted him. We are grateful for the outpouring of love and support you have all shown throughout his career, and especially these last few months. His music meant everything to him, and his guitar was his life's breath. This insidious disease took that away from him. His legacy with the Dictators, Manowar, Ross the Boss, and other collabs will live on forever in our hearts and ears, end quote. And, I mean, you go anywhere on the internet at this point, Blabbermouth, Loudwire, Metal Sucks, Metal Edge, Metal Injection, the PRP, and you're gonna hear and read all of the same kind of things, and deservedly so. And that's just it. I mean, that doesn't even scratch the surface of the influence that Ross had. I mean, because when you're a pioneering force in two separate genres of music, heavy metal and punk, I mean, you've done something. When your name
Mhm.
becomes synonymous with
With
multiple,
both of them,
with multiple genres of music, that didn't happen by accident. So I mean, there's really not enough superlatives that can be said about guys like that, about Ross
yeah.
and Ace
Right.
Frehley and Ozzy Osbourne. I mean, it's just, you know, there's just not enough that can be said about it, just to just kind of convey the impact. There just really isn't. There's not really enough that can be said. I mean, you can talk about it almost almost forever. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, just to go back to our conversation with Stu Marshall from Death Dealer. I mean, he was talking about
mhm.
how he it was one of his dreams was to work with Ross, and then
Yeah,
it kind of came to fruition, and now they had this great project going, and then all of a sudden this throws a wrench in the gears, and
yeah.
then now of course now there's
There's
definitely
no more
no
Death Dealer.
chance.
Yeah,
I mean, there wasn't any more anyway. He already said
yeah,
they weren't going to do anything
yeah.
without Ross, and then of course
Oh yeah.
now they everybody has to kind of live life without Ross, which is unfortunate.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's a horrible like. So this is the thing. If any of you people are out there or donating people, go and donate to this cause, because I mean, this is something that needs a lot of more research done on,
ALS. Yeah.
and I mean it's a horrible disease, man. I
Hmm.
mean look, there's a lot of horrible diseases. Don't get me wrong, but this is something that's taken a lot of people. A lot more people than you would think. It's taken a lot more people. People's lives than what you would think off the top of your. I mean even famous people. Lou Gehrig's disease is called that for a reason.
Right. Yep.
Lou Gehrig had it.
Yep.
Football players, baseball players, musicians. I mean,
Yep.
you're not immune to any of it. It could
That's what
happen.
Jason Becker's been going through.
Well, yeah, for what 30 years, which is
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
This guy's been going through it for 30 years, and you know, Ross
And
the
it,
Boss
it
finds out and then just succumbs to it within months of
a
knowing.
couple of months. Yeah.
So, which is like I said, it's pretty wild to think. But this is another thing that I've always said on here: get those checkups, man. You gotta get
Hmm.
those checkups too.
Yeah.
You know, look what happened to me, and I always I go 2 times a year to get checked up, and it still happened to me. So it's like.
Hmm.
At what point do you say, okay, maybe I need to go every quarter? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of like,
Really.
it's almost. I mean, but if you keep going with that mindset, you just be at the damn doctor every day, and you don't want to live that
Yeah.
life either. I mean, it's but it's horrible, man. Hopefully, they find some kind of at least to stall it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If not,
Some sort of treatment to slow it
to
down at
where it
least.
doesn't
Yeah.
doesn't mutate into something greater.
To where it doesn't become maybe to where it doesn't become so damn debilitating. Because I
Right, where
mean,
people can still have some kind of quality of life for,
yeah, because
you know,
I mean, Jason Becker has to communicate with his eyes through a computer. I mean,
right.
he
So
literally
that's
cannot
wild.
move. He cannot move. I mean, it sucks.
But for him to be able to write music that way is pretty amazing, though. The technology that we have.
Yep, that's true.
So,
And
uh,
also
I, I,
just shows what a profound talent Jason Becker is.
well, yeah, that's true too. I want to talk a little bit about this one because I think this story we kind of both kind of had a feel that this was the way it was with Metallica back in the day. But Metallica's former producer looked back on how heavy metal stars leaned on their late bassist Cliff Burton and his musical expertise. Talking to Metal Hammer, Fleming Rasmussen, who the band worked with on the '84's Ride the Lightning and '86's Master of Puppets. Oh, and '88's Injustice for All. So he was there during
Hmm.
the prime Metallica, I guess people would say. Says that even though founders James Hetfield and Lars Ulrich are seen as the leaders of the four piece, that wasn't necessarily true when Burton was around. The thing about Lars and James being the leaders of the band didn't emerge until later, says Rasmussen. At that point, it was a four-piece unit. Lars and James were the ones out there promoting the band, but Cliff was the oldest and the one with a musical education, so they leaned on him to get shit done. So he asked Burton was important to the structure of the band. He took part in all of the decisive processes. Nothing really happened in Metallica unless Cliff nodded yes. Uh, Even though Metallica went on to become one of the biggest bands in metal with their '91 self-titled album, topping charts all over the world and ultimately selling more than 30 million units globally. The producer remembers the members living extremely frugally while making Ride of Lightning and Master of Puppets. So they had been staying with friends when they did Ride the Lightning, and I'd seen how they lived and ate, and it was shit. He says I called their management and said, if we're going to work as hard, if we're going to work as hard, they need proper meals. Why don't you send me a chunk of money and I'll get my wife to cook dinner for these guys? And And then they said sure. So you know, he continues saying every day started with him showing up at 6 in the evening at my house, and we'd have dinner. First day, my wife made meatballs with remoulade sauce, which was a perfect Danish thing. Their favorite was rice porridge, which was something Danes say that the elves eat. They love that. So this is kind of like just giving a now it's trying to paint a picture of how they were kind of frugal in the beginning while Cliff was around and stuff. So
Yeah.
um,
Well, I mean, I know we haven't done this very often, and we haven't done one in a while, but wasn't that the first what if we did? What if Cliff hadn't died?
I think so. I think
Because I
maybe
mean,
it was, yeah,
if it wasn't the first, it was one of the first ones that we
one
did.
of
Because
the
like I say,
first. Yeah, yeah.
we hadn't done this in a minute, but
No, we can
but
get back to doing some of that, but
but that's the thing is, that was because if for some of you who may or may not remember, but when they asked Cliff to join the band, he said he would if the band moved from L.A. to San Francisco. So I mean, he
yeah,
was
he wasn't.
already setting terms before he even really joined the band.
Hmm. Yeah,
And there's there's actually a pretty good chance. I'd say better than average chance that if that bus accident doesn't happen and Cliff doesn't die, that there's a lot of shit that Metallica did that they wouldn't have done. We've talked about
right.
it
Oh yeah.
plenty of
Oh
times.
yeah. Yeah.
Collaboration
But
that
the thing,
so the symphony
yeah, another
orchestra
thing.
thing, so
Oh yeah. Another thing you
that
got to think about
wasn't.
too is if if he would have lived, would they have made the Black album? I mean, if they
That's
and
true. That's true.
which is their most popular album, so Metallica may not be the success they are right now
That's
either without
true.
that album. So
That's also
so
true.
it's kind of like there's a lot of variables at play when
Yeah.
and we talk about those a lot of times when we do that, which it's kind of
Yeah,
something
sure.
fun we probably need to get back to doing, but
Yeah. Yeah, because it's not
I
because
enjoy those
yeah,
things.
because it's not all because like if bad thing A doesn't happen, that doesn't mean that you avoid all of the bad things that followed. There's also good things that come out of it. There's pros and cons in everything. You can say there's not, but there is. There's pros and cons in everything.
Oh yeah.
So so yeah, I mean it was of course it was an absolute tragedy that bus accident happened and Cliff lost his life. It absolutely was. But that
Well,
doesn't mean
the
that
way he lost his life was tragic enough.
well, absolutely, but that doesn't mean if he would have lived that it would have wiped out just the bad stuff that happened to Metallica. You're
Right.
absolutely
That's
right.
true.
You're absolutely right. Absolutely
I
right.
mean, they still would have been probably alcoholics and stuff like that. So, I mean, you know,
Probably. Well, hell, that shit haunted James until relatively recently. I mean, hell, he
yeah,
went. When was it that? In the last 5 to 7 years, he actually went back to rehab for a little while. So I mean, hell,
yeah.
that shit's been haunting James forever.
And then I don't know if I didn't really pull that story up, but if you haven't, he James Hetfield actually proposed to his now fiance
His current,
under
yeah,
was it underwater scuba diving
underwater.
or something?
Yeah, they were scuba diving. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Pretty
And
wild.
then the funny thing was, is talking about James. Apparently, and I didn't read the story, and I should have, but I didn't. But apparently, James's ex-wife said something. She was talking about how James's addictions were the scope of James's addictions from the past were never really talked about. It's just as as bad as they were. That's what she's talking about. I mean, we know, James was, alcoholic. He went to rehab and all that stuff. If you saw the Some Kind of Monster documentary, that was talked about quite a bit during that. But, she was talking about no one really knew the full scope of what James was going through. So,
I think that's the thing too is you don't know what these people go through on a day. I mean, you don't even know their day to days. I mean, their day to day may
mhm,
be so stressful that they think they have to drink or smoke pot or do cocaine or whatever the case may be, whatever their crutch is. I mean,
just to
and like I
cope.
said, yeah, and I think now that since technology has gotten the way it has. I think people have different ways to do things, to kind of keep their mind off stuff without doing drugs and alcohol. Now it's like, I talked about this before, where back in the wrestling days, you said, party, oh, we're going out to the club after the shows and blah blah blah. Blah. Now they're like, hey, we're gonna go to the van and play some, Call of Duty, or it's like that's a big change in the way things are done, and I'm sure rock stars do the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's probably some rock stars that do the same thing, and that they lean toward other things, like maybe it's social media, maybe. I think that, what, when I think about it, I've done this recently, and I probably need to do more on it, because me, I'm kind of once I got into like doing data for things with Amazon, I kind of do it for
Hmm.
everything now, and my wife hates
Yeah.
it, but I do it a lot. I'm just like, yeah, but it's just like when they build stuff around here. So who does the data on this shit? Because I mean, why would the whole thing's like, maybe you build an oil change place or something here. Okay, well, who did the data on that? If you got an oil change place that is like three red lights up, and they're not always busy, what makes you think you're going to do any business if that's the case? Now, if they're back up and never get anybody out on time, then yeah, I'll put an oil change place in to help out. But now I see 4 or 5 guys at the new oil change place with signs going, "Hey, come here," no wait. It's like, yeah, they don't wait because you didn't need the fucking oil change place there. So, but it's like you said, you got to have a need for those things. So,
Yeah. Yeah. You can't just plop a business down anywhere. You got to do a little bit of research.
right, research, but yeah, we're going back to data. Say the data for things, like what we were just talking about, is kind of part of everything too. Is what I do with my hands. Jesus, I forgot what we were talking about. So I was actually looking at another at the next story and forgot what we were talking about.
Well, I mean,
Um,
we've just been talking about a little bit of everything, a little bit of everything. I
well,
mean,
yeah,
talking about losing Ross, of course, but yeah, we've just talked about a little bit of everything so far. But we were talking. The last thing we were talking about Metallica, and James is the
right,
the scope of James's, the ghosts that have haunted him. So
right, yeah, yeah. But oh yeah, I was talking about the data thing. So I was going to ask. I was saying the data thing. I've been asking people recently, like just asking people out of the blue, is like, hey, do you ever read a book? And like it's amazing to me of how many people don't read anymore. You know, they just don't like sit down with a book and just read.
yeah,
They're on social media, which I think, to me, if you open a book and read, it kind of probably makes you less anxious than opening this thing up and
it
going through
does.
shit, because I think that creates a lot of anxiety that's unnecessary and unneeded. And honestly, I'll tell you the truth. Half the time I open this thing up, I don't believe half the shit I read on there anyway. So,
Right. Yeah, it's gotten to that point.
and like, yeah, it's almost like they're going to be like, oh, well, there's the World War III's happened, and there's a nuke, and we're all going to be wiped out in 30 minutes, and we're probably going to be like, yeah, what the fuck ever. And then all of a sudden you see the big ball of fire coming towards you, like, oh shit, they were in line.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, the funny thing is the world was supposed to have ended. I don't even know how many times now at this point. I mean, there's been so many
oh
predictions. Oh,
well,
the world is going to end, blah blah blah, and it's like, oh well. Of
nobody
course, the
nobody
world
knows
was,
the date that that's going to happen.
yeah, the world was supposed to end in 2012, and it's like, no, that's just when the Mayans stopped counting. That's just when they stopped counting.
Right. Yeah.
That's as far as their calendar went. They just went to the end of 2012. They're like, eh. Which
Yeah,
is
if we make it
funny.
that
Which
far,
is
we'll be
funny when
good.
you think about it.
That's
Yeah, it's
probably that's
just
probably what it was. That's probably, they probably didn't think they'd make it that far. They probably
yeah,
thought,
they were
I guess they were going.
probably yeah. It's funny when you think about it. They're like we're gonna count time, and then they were just like, all right, this is too far. Yeah, we're probably not even gonna be around then. We could just stop counting now.
Right.
So I mean, yeah, that's just when the Mayan calendar stopped. It was like, oh, so when the world begins. You realize the Mayans haven't been around for a minute.
Hmm.
What does that tell you? I mean,
Yep. Not for a while.
no, they hadn't been around for a minute. But then
Well, that's the thing. It's
well
like
you well you well
we
you I mean, you got people that think the Earth is flat too. So I mean,
Well, yeah. Well, another thing, we grew up watching like the Jetsons and stuff like that. So I mean,
sure,
that takes place in like 2060 something or whatever. But it's like, who's to say we're ever going to make it to that point? It's kind of
that's
like,
true. Yeah.
we,
You watch Back to the Future too when Marty went to 2015, and here we are. We're 11 years later. We
I
don't
know,
have
right? I
any of
agree
that
with you,
shit.
yeah.
So,
I know. It's like, what the
what
hell
have
are we
they had
doing,
shit?
man?
Yeah. No flying cars, none of that shit. We don't have any of it.
Yeah, I know. Like, we're not, we can't even get them to, drive themselves properly yet. So,
Yeah. I mean, we don't even have the Nikes with the automatic laces yet. We don't even have
I
those.
know. That's crazy. Yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
not on a mass production scale. I know that there's been companies that have reproduced them, as a
mhm.
one-off. But I mean, you're not going to Foot Locker and getting the Power Lace Nikes. You're not getting them.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so we don't even have those.
That's crazy. I don't know if you've seen. I posted a joke about kind of like the self-driving thing. I said, if you got a self-driving car, do you really need a driver's license? Because
I did see, I did see that.
I mean, you're not driving it, so I mean, like, why the hell would I need a license?
I mean, that's true. That is very true.
Start bringing up stuff like that, they'll get out of that shit real quick.
Oh yeah,
Hold up, man. We got to get to driver license money. Hold up,
yeah.
man.
Of course,
Another
it could
thing,
be. Of course, it'll end up like Fifth Element, Lilu Dallas Multipass. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. Have to buy something else. So,
oh
um,
yeah, the government's gonna get their fucking money. They are.
yeah. Another thing we kind of wanted to talk about, or at least I did, was the Sepultura, thing with the founding
Yeah,
members, or former members, Max and
Max
Igor
and Igor. Yeah.
Cavalier turned down a chance to reunite with the Brazilian extreme metal band on stage. Says longtime guitarist Andreas Kisser. Kisser makes the claim in a new interview with Metal Hammer, saying that even though he personally spoke with Igor over the phone and the band's management reached out to the brothers' representatives, the pair don't want to participate in the Swan Song show later this year. We're still in the middle of arranging everything, but it's going to be great, Kisser says when Hammer asks what Sepultura have planned for their final concert, which is set to take place in Sao Paulo. And of course, that kind of makes sense since that's where it all began, right?
Yep.
He continues, we did invite the Cavalier brothers. I spoke to Igor personally on the phone a few months ago, and we started some communication. Even our managers went to talk to their management and stuff, but they don't want to be a part of it, and that's okay. It's a choice. Guitarist adds that he reached out because it would make sense to have a celebration at the end for the fans and just to enjoy ourselves on stage. It could be like it was on the '96 album and Max's final Sepultura recording, Roots. Despite all the fucking crazy stuff around it, we managed to make that album and finish what we had to do. Max 56, Igor 55 founded Sepultura in Belo Horizonte in 1984. Kisser joined the lineup in '87 before the writing and recording of their second album, Schizophrenia. Rounded out by bassist Paulo Jr., the lineup persisted until the end of '96 when Max left the band due to disagreements over their management by his wife Gloria. Igor stepped down in 2006 and reunited with his brother in the band Cavalier Conspiracy. Sepultura now with Derek Green on vocals and Grayson Neckrutman on drums announced in 2023 that they'd retire following one last world tour. Kisser has given multiple reasons why in interviews, including the relentless nature of the album, tour, and lifestyle, not wanting to try and outdo their last album, Quadra, in 2020, and the emotional impact of his wife Patricia dying from cancer in 2022. So there's a lot of variables there that I guess at that point, I guess Kisser would be the kind of the so-called active founding member, I guess, if
Yeah.
that's the case. Because and I think it's interesting that Max and Igor left the band and said you can have the name and everything. Fuck it. So, which I don't know if that was the whole story, but I'm sure there's probably more to it than that. I'm sure there was probably I couldn't see them leaving the band that they created and not have a dispute over who controls what, or if they
Right.
just didn't, or if they just like were so frustrated. I could see them being so frustrated with it they just didn't give a shit anymore and just like, hey, you do what you want to with it. We're done with
I
it.
mean, maybe. Yeah.
Back then it would. I don't know how it was. Back then than it is now. I know now people drag shit out in courts and everything now to get what get
Yeah.
something to do with a name, and half the time it's a waste of fucking money. Um, but
Yeah.
it's uh, let's see, Max said he'd be open. So in 2024, Max said he'd be open to reuniting with Tripp during their last rides, and he retracted that statement the following month, however, saying that he was having too much fun playing with his brother and didn't want to take away from that. Um, that's kind of one of the things that I thought maybe it's um, hold on. It says you kind of have to realize if we end up doing a Sepultura reunion, it's almost like we can't go back to the Cavalera thing. It won't really make sense. He told Metal Injection. People probably will be like, I don't want to go watch Cavalera if they're making a real reunion. To me, I don't want to do that because I love that what we have here in Cavalera now is so badass. So I guess he's thinking that it may give a false hope to people. I don't know, but I mean, it is the final. It's a final tour, though. I mean, they're done. I mean, it's you know, it's kind of like I think people would realize it was a one off, especially with the stories that has been leading up to it.
Hmm.
Um, and then I think too is like maybe Max is kind of one of those people, if taken from Richie's perspective that when we talked to him, is Max is one of those people that probably were I could see being like. You guys have created what Sepultura is now. You do it, uh, kind of thing. Whereas he don't want anything. Like I said, I feel like he's one of those people that once he walks away from something, he just don't want to have anything to do with it anymore. I
Yeah.
think that's just kind of that's how he come off to me when Richie talked about him. You know, is Max is a good dude, but he just kind of like, hey, if he's done with you, he's done with you. He's not gonna.
Yeah. Well, in one aspect, I mean, I guess if he feels like he doesn't need it, well, not him. I mean, them. It's Max and Igor.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I guess if they both feel like it's not something that they feel they need to be a part of, then more power to them, man. I
Yeah.
mean,
Well, I
it,
mean,
it's al- it, it's almost like at this point, it's like, hey, I mean, we left a long time ago, and we gave you guys our blessing to just carry on with the name, and it is what it is now. It's your band, and you guys are calling it quits, and we got our own shit going on. And I mean,
well,
thank you, but
if you look at it, Derek Green's been the voice of them for the majority of the career. So I mean,
yeah,
so why does it would it be cool to see all them together? Yeah, it would
of
be
course
cool.
it would. Yeah,
But I mean, people people have the way they feel about things, and there's nothing you're gonna probably do or say to change it. So
yeah. But I mean, good on them to ask.
well, yeah, I mean,
Good on
yeah.
them
So
to
I
ask.
mean, yeah. So I mean, I don't think there's any hard feelings about it or anything. I mean, I wouldn't think so.
Uh, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it's not all. I'm sure it's not all. What do you call it? I mean, it's. I'm sure not. I'm sure it's not all 100% cool because I mean, there's got to be a. There may be a little bit like in the back of somebody's mind, a little bit of, you know, something, but it still is good on. Whether it was. Yeah, I'm sure it was Andreas who reached out to him and asked him if they want to be a part of it, and that's what I'm saying. I mean, Andreas didn't even have to do that, so good on him for
Right.
doing that. And just it is what it is. It was probably like one of those hey thanks but no thanks kind of things, and that's what it's just what it is. It's definitely not the situation where like Megadeth, where David Ellison's like, yeah, I should be there, and I think it's messed up that I can't. And I
Right.
think I think David's actually got a good point. But I mean,
Well,
again,
yeah.
Dave Mustaine is going to do what Dave Mustaine wants, and even David
Right.
Ellefson said that he's like, it's his band, I should be there. It was my band too, but Dave's going to Dave, and it is what it is.
Mhm.
So even David Ellefson said it.
Well,
So
I mean, you can kind of see both perspectives, I guess. I mean, I get that, he feels like he should be a part of it since he was part of, you know, the majority of Megadeth's hits. I mean,
hmm
Dave Ellison was there. So, I mean,
yeah,
it's, kind of, kind of feels, probably kind of like, Dave Mustaine feels about being part of some of the Metallica shit. It's
sure,
kind of like, hey, I wrote that shit, motherfucker. Like,
yeah,
you know, but I guess I kind of get it. But then you think about it, Dave Mustaine's like, hey, this is over, it's done with. whatever's happened in the past, and we're going to end it like this and leave Megadeth. I guess the thing is, like, you want to leave Megadeth where it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Say the final four members of Megadeth are the final four members of
Yeah.
Megadeth. You know.
I will say though, it is ironic that for as much shit as Dave gets about talking about what happened to him
Oh
in
yeah,
Metallica, he's doing the same thing to David Ellison.
exactly. Yeah,
It's like the epitome of irony.
yeah, yeah. Talking about Dave Ellison, talking about Dave Mustaine.
Yeah,
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 absolutely.
he's bringing it up early. I remember like seeing the thing, and it was like in it was like in the stories, you know, when the before you click on them, it had
Hmm.
like the little thumbnails there, and I remember seeing one that said, you know, Dave Ellison says that I don't think much about Megadeth anymore, and blah 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 blah, and then you know you go 3 or 4 down, he's just like, you know. Mustaine, oh, you know, Mustaine should include me, and it's like
Hmm.
you just said you didn't think much about it anymore.
Yep.
Oh god, it's like
Oh
Dave
yeah.
Mustaine over Metallica all over again. Really,
Hmm.
yeah, that's the first thing I thought of. Like you said when you said that, I was like, yeah, I remember
Oh yeah.
seeing that. That's the first thing I thought of. Was like, you know, you talk about Dave needs to let shit with Metallica go, and here you are. It's like,
Yep.
and hell, Dave Mustaine's
100%.
kind of a bit. Probably did that shit on purpose. Like, you let you see how it feels, motherfucker. Uh,
But
there was one
again,
more thing.
like I say, Dave Mustaine should know how David Ellison feels. But it is what it is.
As long as they've been together, they probably know how each other feels. You know, it's
That's
kind of like
yeah. That's another good point.
you've been together, you know, off and on for 30+ years of Megadeth.
Yeah.
And, I don't want to say this was kind of an interesting story. An American man was pled guilty to defrauding musicians and global music streaming platforms out of millions of dollars via the AI creation of hundreds of thousands of songs, which were streamed billions of times by automated bots that were set up. Michael Smith, 54, Canitas, California, North Carolina. Sorry, Canitas, North Carolina, admitted one count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud, which carries a maximum sentence of 5 years in prison. He will learn his sentence in July. Smith also agreed to pay back the royalties of eight. Let me make sure I got there. $8,091,843.64 that he obtained fraudulently. Jesus Christ. Smith set up thousands of accounts on streaming platforms. He created software to continuously stream hundreds of thousands of fake songs that he generated via AI. Explaining the exact nature of Smith's offense and how it perpetrated, a statement on the Department of Justice website reads, quote, music can be streamed through music streaming platforms such as Amazon Music, Apple Music, Spotify, and YouTube Music. Each time a song is streamed through one of the streaming platforms, the songwriter who composed the song, the musician who performed it, and in certain cases, other rights holders are entitled to small royalty payments.
Hmm.
Yeah, small, tiny,
Very,
tiny.
very, very small.
Royalty payments are made are made proportionately to musicians and songwriters from a pool of funds. As a result, streaming fraud diverts funds from musicians and songwriters whose songs were legitimately
Yeah.
streamed by real consumers to those who use automation to falsely create the appearance of legitimate streaming. Michael Smith generated thousands of fake songs using artificial intelligence and then streamed those fake songs billions of times, U.S. Attorney Jay Clayton said in a statement posted on the Department of Justice website. Although the songs and listeners were fake, the millions of dollars stole was real. The millions of dollars in royalties that Smith diverted from real deserving artists and rights holders. Smith's brazen scheme is over as he stands convicted of a federal crime for his AI assisted fraud. According to the American Music Industry Bible, Billboard, the AI music generator platform Suno generates 7 million songs per day, and according to The Guardian, the streaming site Deezer has 60,000 fully AI generated tracks delivered daily. That's
Jesus Christ, man, that is absolutely unreal, man.
that's fucking ridiculous, dude.
60,000 songs a day. My God.
The story behind viral hit. Oh, that's a different. No, that's something else. Hold on. Oh, the article continues. Oh, where did it continue at? Oh, it's in between videos. Okay. Interviewed by Billboard last week, Suno's chief music officer Paul Sinclair admitted, "Every day I wake up and I'm like, don't ruin music. Truly, every single day I'm conflicted. This shit is complicated." End quote. I'm sure it is, especially with 60,000 of them coming to you every day.
Mm-hmm.
The video from popular YouTuber Rick Beto shows exactly how easy it is to generate a fake artist and fake songs. Oh, so there's how-to videos on how to do this shit. That's awesome too. Giving people ideas, which is
Mm-hmm.
fucking retarded. Some
Yep.
things don't need to be making a video about. So he makes a video
Right.
about
Yeah.
how to create fake shit to get numbers to get paid by YouTube for millions of hits on his video about how to make fake videos. That, that that's just fucking
I know. Yeah,
unreal.
you can't make.
Unreal to even think about. Like what?
Yeah, you can't make this shit up. Or apparently you can.
Well, yeah, you can.
Well, you can.
Um, you know,
My God.
which is crazy, and I agree with what they said. That's kind of the point, the point I was going to make was that they're taking away from artists that we have on this show, or
Mm-hmm.
people that are trying to get out there that
Yep.
have real talent and real music,
Yep.
and that's probably why they're tightening down on the AI stuff on all these
And they
platforms
should.
too. They should,
And
yeah. I
I'm glad these platforms are making that stance. It's like, hey, this
yeah.
is the music. The music on our platform is going to be real music made by real people, and so that's the way it
Well,
needs to be.
let's just say half of that, 8 million probably came from like Spotify. So if half of that came from Spotify, that's $4 million that could have went somewhere else,
It should have
or
gone
or
somewhere else.
split up between other artists that actually had stuff out there that were being streamed. So,
Yeah.
but, yeah. So
Well,
hopefully that's
the funny thing is, like I say, let's just do that. Devil's advocate. You take half of that 8 million, and it's 4 million, and you divide it by that. What is it? 0.007 cents.
yeah 007. Yeah,
That's 571,428,571 individual streams.
and that's crazy.
So that's over a half a billion songs
Streams.
worth of payout that guy took. So yeah, I mean it's fucked up, man.
So he should go to jail for shit
He
like that.
absolutely should. Hope he does. He probably will.
Then he can. Then his number will be, on the back of his
That's
jumpsuit.
right. Yeah, yeah. He'll have a six digit inmate number.
They should give him the. They should give him the 86 million whatever number. That's what they should give him.
Yeah,
Just to remind him
his,
every day.
yeah,
Just
his
to,
inmate number should be the amount of money that he stole. Yeah,
exactly. Just to remind his ass every fucking day. Uh,
809 6 blah blah blah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That'd be
yeah,
funny.
so that's great. Anything else you want to talk about before we get into other stuff?
No,
Other stuff.
no.
I know there was a few birthdays I didn't do because we were kind of like not in kind of weekly mode since we were we
Right.
had we had some stuff together just in case, but we
Yeah.
because we had tried to get this band on before, and then they were sick, and now it's
Hmm.
now
And
they're
now
worried
this.
about
Yeah.
the language barrier kind of thing. So we definitely want to give them a platform to get their stuff out there, but we have to figure out how to make it work. So we'll
Hmm.
definitely try to or do our best to work with them and try to get it done. But you know, we got to move on to futuristic things right now. So uh,
Yep.
yeah, gonna
Yes, we
probably
do.
reach out. I know there's probably a couple bands we probably need to reach out to. I mean, this week's list. I was talking to Chris about it yesterday. I was just like, man, there was a shit ton of music
Oh
this week.
God, there was so much.
My printer was printing, and I was just like, damn, did it print 3 sheets over there? Like, damn, like,
Yep.
and it did. It printed not 3 whole sheets, but 2 full ones, and then part of a third one. I'm just like, man, that's a lot
Yeah,
of music this week.
it was.
That's probably like probably close to 60, probably 60 some odd albums.
Probably, yeah.
We're around in there. So something crazy. Anyway, I went back to March 21st with birthdays. I don't know why I went back that far, but well, I guess it was. I guess it would have been 7 days ago, right?
Yeah,
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 7 days ago.
yeah. Just a
Okay,
week, sure.
so I was right. Yeah. All right. So I went back to the 21st, and I tried to catch everybody on the website on our page too, or group page. I try to catch everything on there too. So if I didn't, then kind of catch me because I may not have gotten all of them.
Yeah.
But so March 21st, we had Robert Sweet, drummer for Striper, Sharon Ross, Peterson from bassist from Vixen. We had Ethel Dope because vocalist for Dope, and if you don't know, he also does Static X,
Yep.
but as Zero.
As Zero.
But
He
then,
does a hell of a job too. Man, he does
yes,
such a
he
good
does.
job.
We had Stefan Neal, bassist for Low Life X. I don't know if it's Low Life X or Low Life 10. I ain't never figured that part out, but I'm going to say Low Life X because that's what it looks like. March 22nd, we had Euronymous, guitarist and producer for Mayhem. Unfortunately, passed away in 1993. Aaron North, multi instrumentalist for Nine Inch Nails. March 23rd, we had Bill Kelleher, guitarist for Mastodon. Kyle Thomas, vocalist and guitarist for X Hoarder. March 24th, we had Steve Zetro Souza, vocalist for, well, we know him more for being the vocalist for Exodus on,
Hmm.
what, three different occasions now?
Yeah, I think so.
He's had a history with Exodus, and who's to say it's probably not over yet? You never know.
That's
So
true.
they might make a couple albums with Rob that bring Steve back. You don't ever know how they
The
do.
way that man goes, yeah, they might.
March 25th, we had Bob Ezrin, keyboardist and music producer for Alice Cooper, Kiss, Pink Floyd. Frank Ferrer, drummer for Guns N' Roses from 2006 to present. Anders Frieden, vocalist for In Flames. Jeff Walker, bassist and vocalist for Carcass. March 26th, we had Steven Tyler, vocalist for Aerosmith. Trey Azagthoth, guitarist for Morbid Angel. And then March 27th, we had Johnny April, bass guitarist for Stained. And then Betty Floyd from our good friends over at Valkyrie's Fire.
Yep.
So that's what I had. I didn't do anything for today because I've been trying to do everything from Saturday to Friday. so,
Well, that's the
so,
way
so
that's the way I usually do everything too. So yeah, but I mean, I don't think you missed any as far as I
okay.
know.
All right. So I at least
Yeah, because I
wanted to
was
get a
gonna,
week. I just want to get a week's worth in there. So,
yeah,
um,
yeah. So as far as I can tell, I was kind of following along on the page, on the group page. So as far as I know, we got all of them
oh, nice. Okay,
that
good
I'm
deal.
aware of. So yeah. So
Um,
so yeah, we didn't do any hit in the road this week.
there was a lot of
Def,
tours too.
yeah, unfortunately, yeah. Well, I do feel kind of bad about it, but I mean, we didn't really didn't do any hit in the road this week. But
Let me see if there was anything that big tour stuff that came out. I can't remember. I don't think there was really any kind of well, Hatebreed's going to headline Summer Slaughter 2026. I don't know if that's the tour. Is that the tour they're calling it, or with Devourment? And yeah, I guess so.
uh,
Incantation.
okay, yeah,
Let's see.
yeah. I'm not. Yeah,
It's a little,
I
it's
honestly wasn't.
it's a little short tour. They're actually going to be in Nashville on July 8th, though, at the Brooklyn Bowl.
Oh, that's cool.
So, yeah.
I do know that Sabaton is coming to Nashville in December with Pop Evil and Wings of Steel. I do know that. So
Oh, that's a weird combination.
yeah, not so much Wings of Steel. I kind of get that because they're a power
Pop
metal band
Evil.
too. But yeah, Pop Evil right there in the middle is kind of a little bit of a an eyebrow raiser. Not that they're not good. It's just they don't
Fit in
really
with the.
they don't really fit the mold. But but that's okay.
Yeah, I know. We're going to try to see that Sepultura show in May. So
Yeah,
at the Brooklyn Bowl, since they said it's their last
yeah, that's it. The last
last
hurrah,
hurrah.
man.
I don't think Susie says she's never seen them. So I've seen them. I think I've only seen them once, and that was back at Ozfest.
That's been a minute. Yeah.
Mhm. So that'd be cool to see them. And I think they got an EP they're working on too.
Yeah, yeah, they do actually.
So that's pretty cool. So
Yeah.
Well, we do have a theme of the week we've been sitting on for
Yes, we do. Yeah, we do. We do
for a
have
little
that.
while now. So I guess we can go through that real quick.
Yeah, we do.
And we had a theme of on and off. That way, kind of give you guys a new playlist to listen to on Spotify. There, I guess.
Yep.
I had the on side of things, and I kicked mine off here with Malevolence on Broken Glass from Malicious Intent 2022. Then I had Megadeth Soldier on from the Sick, the Nine, and the Dead 2022. Hailstorm Rain Your Blood on Me from their Everest album in 2025. Asking Alexandria Moving On from Death to Destiny in 2013. Nothing More House on Sand from Carnal 2024. Metallica Don't Tread on Me from Metallica 1991. Hero and the Horror on Fire from Old Ghost 2024. Burning Witches World on Fire from The Dark Tower 2023.
Oh, no.
Savage Existence It's All on You from Savage Existence 2023. Avatar on the Beach from Dance Devil Dance on 2023. And Zillu, Needles on My Nerves from Ex Nihilo. Nihilo. Is it Nihilo or Nihilo? I can't remember how they.
I want to say it's Nihilo because it's
Nihilo,
talking about nihilism as far as I'm
Oh,
as
gotcha,
far as I
gotcha,
know.
gotcha.
So I think it's Nihilo. Yeah.
I had Law Society, Blood on Your Hands from No Absolution 2020. Wasp on Your Knees from Wasp 1984. Ozzy, See You on the Other Side, which was our
Mm-hmm.
kind of tribute to all the people that we lost last year. So
Yep.
that's from Osmosis 1995. Bullet from My Valentine, Pretty on the Inside from Fever 2010. Corn, Worst is on Its Way from Requiem 2022. Armored Saint, Standing on the Shoulders of Giants from Punch in the Sky 2020. Eyes of the Living, War on Dead, More Dead 2019. Demon Hunter, On My Side from War 2019. Iron Maiden, The Writing on the Wall from Senjutsu 2021. Shadows Fall, Inspiration on Demand from the War Within
Oh, yeah.
2004. Angelus Apatrida, Serpents on Parade from Hidden Evolution 2015. Trivium, Pull Harder on the Strings of Your Martyr from Ascendancy 2005. Killswitch Engage, It Falls on Me, Incarnate 2016. Lamb of God, On the Hook from Lamb of God 2020. Overkill, Head On from Immortalis 2010. Sorry. Death Dealer, Riding on the Wings from Reign of Steel 2026, the new album, of course. And then Avenged Sevenfold, Carry On from the Call of Duty Black Ops 2 2012 soundtrack. So that was
Damn,
my
dude, that was a
It
good
was
list.
a long list. Yeah,
Oh,
sorry, it
that
was
was
a
a
long
good.
list.
No, I'm okay. That was a
Um,
great list, man. That's a good
yeah,
one.
I was
I'm
like,
just
man, I feel like I could go on forever, but
you could go on forever. Yeah,
I kind of thought it was kind of ironic because I did not. We of course we didn't know when we did this that Ross was going to pass away, and then Death Dealer happened to be on the
right.
theme, which is kind of I don't know. Some things just happen in life.
It
It's
is.
kind of
Yeah,
spooky sometimes. But
it is. Yeah, it is. All right, I had the off portion, of course, and what better way to kick this off was with Blast Off by Angelus Apatrida off of Clockwork
yes,
from 2010. Then we had Heads Off by Rage off the Sound Chaser archives from 2014. I had Back Off by UDO off of Holy from 1999. Then I had Piss Off by Saxon from Metalhead from 1999. Then I had Get Off the Fence by Armored Saint from La Raza from 2010. Better Off Dead by Sodom off Better Off Dead, album of the same name from 1990. Then I had Turn Off the Light from our friends in Brainstorm from Wall of Skulls in 2021. And this one surprised even me, Off the Edge by Megadeth off of Super Collider from 2013, because I don't even really like that album that much.
yeah,
Ripping You Off Blind by Destruction off Thrash Anthems 2 from 2017. Peel Off the Skin from our friends in Methane off The Devil's Own from 2017. Off with Their Heads by Soulfly off of Omen from 2010. Another Cavalera kind of tie in there. Then Designed to Piss You Off by Pain off of Coming Home from 2016. Then Let Off Some Steam Bennett by Austrian Death Machine off of Double Brutal from 2009. Say what you want about Tim Lambesis, but his Austrian Death Machine little side project is fucking good. I don't care.
Oh
I,
yeah.
I think it's
Oh yeah.
fucking good. It's good, but it's funny. But I like it. I do. I do. I enjoy it.
I thought the new As I Lay Dying record was good. So I
Yeah.
mean,
So I mean, say what you want about Tim as a person, but I mean, he puts out some good music. I mean, separating the art from the artist. I mean, he does. He does. He absolutely. I do. I enjoy. I enjoy Austrian Death Machine. Okay, then we had "Off with Their Heads" by Warbringer off of Four Empire's Collapse 2013. "You're Better Off Dead" by Children of Bottom off of Hate Crew Death Roll from 2003. "Falling Off the Edge of the World" by Black Sabbath off of Mob Rules from 1981. "You're Cut Off" by Municipal Waste off the Metal Feast Waste in Space from 2012. "When God Took a Day Off" by Pretty Maids off of Kingmaker from 2016. We don't talk about Pretty Maids on the show too often, so
no, that's
yeah, kind of. I was gonna say that was another one that surprised even me that I added that one to this one. Then I had "Chucked Off" from our friends in Insight off of Savage New Times from 2025, and last but far from least, "Heads Shoveled Off" by Cannibal Corpse off of Red Before Black from 2017. So
awesome. Got some comments over here from the Beer
I
Jesus.
see that, man. Thank you.
Love you guys. Deathraiser, you guys remind me of a revival of Morbid Seat. Thank you for the rest. Actually, I'm glad he brought that up because, God, man, I was trying to think of who they reminded me of, and that would be it. Yeah, I could see that for sure. Yeah, I kept saying, like, man, this is like, because I mean, when we listened to it, of course, the first time, and of course, I listened to it yesterday and a little
Yeah,
bit this morning.
yeah. I listened
But
to
I
it
was just
yesterday evening
thinking,
too.
I was thinking the whole time when I was listening to it, like, man, this is like, this is like one of those bands that are in 2026. Sounds like the '80s speed thrash metal band that you would you hear in the '80s on like I said, on Headbangers Ball or whatever when you're listening, 1 o'clock in the morning. But yeah, like that Morbid Saint was a perfect. Yeah, I think that's a perfectly good tie-in there. So I definitely felt like they were Slayer-esque for sure from early Slayers.
Yeah.
He said, "Fucking brutal is such a groove." Let's see, yeah.
And followed. Hey,
Followed.
appreciate it.
So
We
I don't
appreciate
know if
that.
he's talking about us or them. Either way, I'm sure they
Either way,
appreciate it,
yeah,
and we
either way,
appreciate it. So yeah, so
yeah.
we are
Either
going to
way, it's fine.
and we are trying to work something out with those guys. I mean, I hate that they had to feel like we were putting them on a spot, trying to put them on a live show, and their English is a little broken. So
Yeah,
it's I know we can do like a broadcast and not live stream it. So
yeah. We could
we'll
absolutely.
probably wind up doing that on one Saturday morning and then stream it later or something.
Yeah, we could do something like that. We'll work it out.
But yeah, I do want to give those guys a platform because I feel like they're for one, they're from I think Brazil, right? I
Hmm.
think that's where they were. Yeah, so we don't get to talk to a lot of Brazilian bands here, so I think that's another reach that we can try to get people here in the states kind of listen
Yeah,
to. There's a lot of Brazilian metal bands, but
yeah. There are
so but
yeah.
yeah, so
Sepultura. Yeah, we got to talk to Royal Rage last year. So
yep, that's right. I forgot about that.
yeah. Before we get into the album review segment, I have a confession to make. I am not ready to do mine.
Oh no,
I'm not ready to do mine. I I just want to say this. It has been a week for me, and I didn't get a chance to get into my album that I was going to review yesterday, so I do apologize for that. I am going to get it done, and I'm going to do it as a write up.
okay.
But yeah, I was not able to, and I'm not gonna half ass an album review because it's not fair to the band. So
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm gonna make sure that I get it done. That way I can do the band justice because it's only fair. I wouldn't feel right doing half-assed album review. So I
Yeah.
want to I want to. So yeah, I do apologize for that.
Well, that's fine. Yeah, it's like I said, this was kind of so this was kind of a thing. It was kind of I guess this all kind of transpired in the last, I don't know, 24 hours,
Hmm.
maybe even less than that. That we kind of
Yeah,
come to terms with. Okay, well, maybe we need to have a backup plan here because it's not sounding good. So
yeah.
so we uh, we kind of threw this together. The info that we do have. So it's very understandable that we didn't have time to do write ups and stuff like that. But I did get mine done. Of course, I was up till 2 in the morning doing shit. So
Oof. Okay.
yeah, yeah. We're not going to talk about that.
Yeah.
My album review was from a band called Deadnate, and it's Deadnate, which is kind of funny. Okay, I like the little play on there. Um, they had their new album's called Mosaic. They are a progressive groove metal band from Fredericia, Denmark, and formed in 2013. So I don't know if we talked to a lot of Danish bands here either.
I don't think we have.
So it might be something to kind of reach out to those guys maybe. The current members are Frederick Fame maybe. Yeah, I think that's probably right. Bass, pretty close anyway. Bassist
Yeah.
O Oli Frank on drums, Simon Jewell on vocals and or lead vocals and guitars, and then Kenneth, and I don't know this last name. Kid, just see. What's the J's in Danish? Are they silent maybe?
Well, is
Are
it
they wide
is
maybe?
is it how's it spelled?
It's like Kejls. So it's like Kyle Strupp, I guess.
Probably. Yeah.
Okay. Vocals, lead vocals and guitars as well. So that's kind of one of the things that popped out to me when we was doing this was the both dual lead vocals and dual guitars. That's kind of pretty interesting. I don't know if I've ever seen that before. Um, but this is the band's second full length release. It's 8 songs, 41 minutes, 27 seconds in length. This to me was a I try to put this in a perspective so kind of Chris gets it more than probably maybe a lot of other people listening would get. But this to me was like a forearm meets Gojira, which
Oh,
is
geez. Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
was really interesting. But vocally was real well done. I thought they had a perfect mix of screams and cleans, and like I said, to me, for Simon and Kenneth both to be doing dual duties on vocals and guitars, both of those guys are doing both. Was really I don't know. They did an amazing job, especially because the guitar work was excellent too. They had like some real good solos in there, some good lead-ins. They also had some nice. Uh, I don't know what they call that because I'm not a I know the sounds, but I don't know like what they're called a lot of times. I guess if that makes sense. So it's
It
like
does. Yeah, it does. I
yeah.
know
So
exactly
they
what
had
you
like
mean.
some slide or whammy sound effects kind of like the kind of like those I guess like probably horrible at sound effects too, but you know it was but yeah, they had a lot of that going on. It was like really like intense too. It wasn't like just a and went on about their business. No, it went on for a minute, dude. I'm just like, wow, that's pretty cool to hear that the different side of or different usage of that, I guess. The bass was prominently heard in spots, and could even say showcased a time or two in there too. So a lot of man, the bass work on the I can't remember the song right off the top of my head. I should have wrote it down, but one of the songs like it was kind of man, you could hear like straight out the gate with the bass line on it. You could you picked up on it. You're like, oh wow, that's pretty good little bass line to lead into to this record to that track. So. But you know the let's see, the drummer was one of those guys that seemed to have more than 2 feet. Maybe
Oh yeah.
had You know,
Must
maybe
be it
he's
must
a
it must
must
be
be a
like a
Tommy Lee drummer or something like
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
uh, he's like, yeah, the third one's with my penis. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what does the kick drum.
that's what does a kick drum. Yeah, so but yeah, it had a lot of double bass kick drum going on in there, man. It's like, I mean, I'm talking about like machine gun type effects too, you know, which was, like I said, probably to the ram of Thomas Hake,
Yeah.
that definitely. I always try to put that one out there because I thought that's that bleeding is just a fucking amazing drumming, dudes. Like, uh, but to get compared to that, I think you're doing a pretty good job. So,
Oh God, yeah.
and it's like like I said, it went on for long periods too. It wasn't just like it went on. It was like it was like you just hear it like he's just fucking sitting there, you know, run, like he's pedaling a goddamn bicycle on it or something. Man. It's like Jesus, yeah, seriously, like it's like
Yeah.
God dang, dude,
Yeah.
like chill out. You're going to have to go through some drum sets to keep doing that stuff. Overall, I like the way they were able to switch tones too. Like, and it wasn't just like it was like I'll get to my point about this too in a minute. But
Yeah, you're
it was
fine.
like simultaneous, like just switch. Like every instrument just switched on a dime, and I'm just like, wow, and like this is what I'm gonna say. Uh, I do realize, yes, it's recorded that way. I do get that, but you do know they're gonna have to do this live, right? They're gonna have to pull this
Yeah.
off live at some point,
Hmm.
which I would love to witness that, by the way.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, for them to just do the way they did it, it was all like a couple songs were just like beating into it, and then it just went shoo, complete silence, and then went back into like a more melodic type sound, and then built back up to that. I'm just like, how in the hell did they do that? It's just, I mean, like I said, recording. I know it's probably easier to do when you're producing and editing stuff, but they're going to have to do this live, and that's going to
Hmm.
be, that would probably make or break me with those guys. Probably is I mean, if they pull that shit off live, which I'm sure they're probably working on that night and
Yeah.
day because they know they're going to have to.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, to see that live, I would pay to see these guys just do that live. Nothing else. I don't care about nothing else. I would. I'm seriously. I
that
mean, it's just
that'd be the price
it
of
would
admission.
it would be that amazing to me to pull that off live. I guess. Um, but yeah, I'm giving this one an easy 4 horns. So
Nice.
yes.
Excellent. Four
But
horns.
yeah, it's definitely something to. So they were. I don't know, man. It's a really like. I think they have like a unique thing going with them. So, you know, hopefully that kind of trends and people pick up on it
Yeah.
being that unique and can roll with those guys for a little while. So hopefully they'll.
Yeah. That would be good.
But like I said, they've been around since 2013, but this is only their second album, so it's kind of like where they.
Yeah, they got a
And I don't
little
think
bit of a slow start.
well, I think their first album didn't come out till 22.
Oh, definitely a slow start. Hmm.
Yeah, so I mean they definitely had some years before their first record. So it's kind of
Yeah.
I want to go back and make sure I'm not lying here, but
All right.
yeah, 2022 was the North Sea album, which
Oh,
I'm
okay.
gonna, I
All
might
right.
I'm gonna check that one out too, man, because this one got me, kind of this one kind of introduces kind of like what we do all the time. The new albums introduce us, and then
Mm-hmm.
we go back and listen to the older stuff to see what's changed and
That's right.
whatnot. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I wouldn't mind chatting with those guys. It seemed like that'd be a pretty cool story to hear.
Yeah. Yeah. At least how they got started, and how long it took to get ramped up and everything. Yeah. All right. Well, looking forward to next week. The first. We're already into April in 2026. Jesus. Looking forward to this Friday, April 3rd. Not quite as long of a list, but that absolutely doesn't mean anything. From our friends over at HeavyMusicHQ.com, leading off with Akim Mana with Threnodies, American Chaos with the Sheeple Swing, Anasarca with Oclis, Apolostic with no plenitude without suffering, Bird without a song with written memories, that's an EP, Blood Valkyria with Requiem, Reveries of the Dying, Bronco Forte with Lightning Scars, Cactus with Temple of Blues 2, Cenotafio with La Escisión a Casual por la Vía en Inversa hacia la Descarnación. I don't know what that
Yeah.
means. I don't know what that means. Chain Fight with EP2, Chariots Overdrive with The End of Antiquity, Claude Friedrichi with Through the Cloud, that's an EP, Corrosion of Conformity with Good God, Bad Man, Cream Flesh with For Your Ass Only. Oh boy, I don't want to know what that album cover is going to look like. Deathbird Earth with Objective Consciousness, Death Dies with Maledicti in Eternum, Dust with Thoughts of a Falling Man, Eveline with Exhumation Eveline, that's an EP, Exhumation / Funeral Chant with Sacred Oath Temple of Death, that's a split album, Foreign Wolf with Merely Mortal, that's an EP, Forlorn Citadel with An Oath Undone, Gentle Sky with Dream, Grade 2 with Talk About It, Graveborn with Mem Tem Psychosis, Green Carnation with A Dark Poem Part 2 Sanguis, Gus Drax with Theories of Imperfection, Jarbo with Sightings, with Numirs with Directions, Croyer with Towering Iron, Lantlos with Nowhere in Between Forever, Machine Cult Ritual with Occult Mechanics, Malariu with The Third Nail, Michael Sweet with The Master Plan, Nature Morte with Still Life, Nervosa with Slave Machine, No Terror in the Bang with Existence, that's an EP, Obey the Sun with Desert Ritual, that's an EP, Orathania with Echo of Freedom, Oxe with Fugue Nod from the Scabbed God Cerebrum, Poison Ruin with Hymns from the Hills, Rats Will Feast with An Evocation, that's an EP, Red Vanilla with Where I Should Be, that's an EP, Relic with Crown of Flies, also an EP, Slamaskin with Endevant, Soft Sun / 10 East with Turn to Stone Chapter 10, that's a split album, Soul Negre with Anthems for the Grand Collapse, Splendidula with Absentia, Sun Don't Shine with From Birth to Death, Through and Through with a self-titled album, Toxic Shock with Future is Calling, Ultra Bomb with The Bridges That We Burn, Unearthly Rites with Tortural Symphony of the Flesh, Veneer with Weird, Viamare with In Lumine Lune, Visions of Terror with the Dark Triad, that's an EP, Voidanth with Death Drive, Void of Light with Ametries, yeah. Waxed with The Continental Way, Wraith Knight with Of Arcane Magic and Forbidden Knowledge, The Necromantical Passage, and lastly Sanjir with Seher A Makhur. Sure.
All right, sure.
Yeah, sure.
Gesundheit.
Hey. Good morning, Aunt Amy. How are you?
All right. Well, I guess that will wrap this one up. Hopefully, like I said, we'll get something rescheduled with the Deathraiser guys and get that out for you guys.
Yep.
I got a lot. For some reason, like I'm having issues with downloading and uploading. For some reason, it's just when I do it through CapCut. For some reason, it takes so much longer to upload. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But,
I'm not exactly sure what's going on with that.
I don't know. Maybe it's just a Spotify don't want to work with them. I don't know.
It could be. It could be.
You can never tell. So.
Yeah, you never know. It could be.
But so far, we will be back next week with a regular program.
We'll be prepared for the classic format this coming.
Well, yeah, next year since we know a week ahead of time, right?
Yeah.
And then we'll probably get some impromptu band to jump in, and we won't even do it. So
yeah, maybe
that's usually,
it has
the way it
before.
works.
It has happened before.
Hopefully, we'll see you guys back here next week. Regardless, like I said, if you want to keep up with everything here, let me put our stuff up here because I forgot to do that.
Yeah, I forgot to switch the ticker over.
Yeah. So you can check out our 24/7 streaming radio station in the meantime over at thefrontrow.net /radio, and that's with a capital R in radio.
That's right. Yep. Follow us on all of our social media platforms, our Facebook group and Facebook page, X, Instagram, TikTok, Stream Faster, our YouTube channel, Twitch, which the Beer Jesus followed us,
Yeah.
Rumble, and all. Check out all of the band interviews that we've uploaded and our weekly playlist over on Spotify. And you can email us at metalheadsuniteusa@gmail.com.
Awesome. I guess.
Thank you again to Hank Hill for joining us on
Yeah.
YouTube, for the Beer Jesus for following us literally and figuratively over on Twitch,
Yeah.
and thank you as always to my Aunt Amy for stopping by on Facebook.
All right, man. Hopefully, like I said, if you want to keep up with anything that goes on during the week that may change, you can mostly be on Facebook, but it also transfers over into Instagram as well. So you can follow us over there and get updates on what may be coming. Like I said, interviews get set up at the last minute sometimes, so, I try to give it a week just so I can promote it, but never can tell with these bands.
Yep.
I know a lot of times I don't check my email every day either, so.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, and especially with the amount of emails we get now, there's like 77. There's 77 unread emails in our inbox.
Yeah,
right now.
yeah. I go through there and read a couple, and then I think I listened to a couple of music things that they sent us the other night from on there. So
Yeah.
so all right. I guess we will wrap this one up then. And until next week, keep those horns held high.